First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another recap edition of the Eternal Insiders Podcast, where we recap the cards that have gone by. We are hot off the heels, of course, of Eternal 93, the card just gone by in Perth, Western Australia. And what a card it was, headlined by the returning Anthony Drillich taking on Brian Hyslop in the main event. Of course, Anthony Drillich, the former Eternal MMA flyweight champion, coming back and getting the job done. But that was one of just a ton of exceptional fights on this card from absolute top to bottom. I feel like I say that all the time when talking about Eternal MMA cards, but this one here just turned out to be such a sneaky good card for a card that didn't have any title fights on it, for a card that was maybe being sort of discussed as not having as much of the sort of the star power we've sort of seen in cards go by for Eternal MMA. This turned out to be one of the most impressive cards that we've ever seen in our entire life, and that includes the prelims, maybe the greatest prelim card we've seen in our entire life, but finishes all the way around, top to bottom, from the prelims up to the main card it was. And of course, sitting there in the commentary booth was my partner in these segments, Mr. Matty Bones Williams, colour commentator extraordinaire, and here to talk about the fights that were being. How are things with you, man? I feel like it's been a long time no see, but I've been enjoying doing these. You had the best seat in the house. How are things with you, man? And how was that card from your spot?
Yeah, I did have the best seat in the house. I shared it with my man, Brett Benetti, and had a real good call with him, man. It was good energy the whole way through. We had a lot of fun, me and Brett, kind of getting each other's rhythm and timing now. And I really like going up there and hanging out with that dude. He's a veteran of the game, and he's good fun to be around. Yeah, man, I've been good. Like, Perth's a long fucking way away from Melbourne.
Sure is, mate.
It's a long way, and it's quite a journey to go up there for the night. But man, I'd go up there every day of the week if it meant, turning up for a prelim card like that. And the main card certainly stood up and delivered as well. It was incredible. And just to be there in Perth, if you've never been to HPC Stadium, it's kind of hard to get your head around. It's about as big as you get without stepping foot in the UFC. So just to paint the picture, 2,500 people, I believe. It was the highest gate ever on record for an Eternal MMA show. It was the second highest attendance ever, second only to Perth again, I think, on the eve of UFC. But that crowd goes off, man. It's mental. The Champions Lounge was sold out. It was crazy up there. They had Steve Erceg, Jack Della was up there walking around, a couple of the other guys as well. So, yeah, the vibe was good, man, and Perth went off.
Quillan Soulkilled there as well, the former lightweight champion too. I think missing out on the other name there, but shout out to Quillan Soulkilled, former lightweight champion there. Of course, the
Cody Haddon.
Cody Haddon, the man, Cody Haddon, of course, training partners with Quillan Soulkilled at the Louis Stroke Combat Academy. You mentioned there, of course, the attendance that we had there at the newly branded Perth High Performance Centre, the Perth HPC, formerly the HBF Stadium in Perth, Western Australia. But as we always say, I mean, the Perth crowds turn out, man. Perth has just become this ever-growing hotbed for Australian mixed martial arts. And to hear that it was a record gate attendance as well as being the second highest attendance in general for Eternal MMA event, for a card with no title fights as well, like just incredible. Like just shows the level of growth. Like people aren't just turning out, to see the absolute biggest, like high-profile fights. They're turning out for MMA in general, which is very cool to see. And you talk about this card being electric, 10 finishes from 13 fights, man. All of the fights on the main card.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah,
No,
Luke,
please.
and I might speak to the structure and intention of the card as well, because the fact that it delivered in such a way with 10 finishes is not by accident. That the matchmaking was so good the whole way through that card, and it was put up there to showcase the talent that we have in this country that's coming through. We look forward to like a card like we had in Sydney the other day with two title fights on it, international talent, or forward to Eternal 94 in the Goldie with title fights on it. But this was a different looking card, and it was put together by the Eternal Matchmakers to show what the future has to offer in the sport, to start introducing some future stars to the broader audience on UFC Fight Pass. And it's certainly just that. It was such a great platform, and some guys really stood up to the moment and put themselves right front and center. So, it was a card that it was delivered in a different way, but it was incredible, man. Such a cool card to be a part of.
Yeah, I sort of liken it to, like a really solid, UFC sneaky like fight night event that you get in like a random US city, like a Utah or like a Denver or something like that, where it's not like a UFC numbered card, but it's just kind of got these like sneaky good prospects on it. A solid little main event, but then every fight is just like an absolute banger, and you sometimes don't get that, or you don't often get that at all on like some of those real like high profile name cards. And these are the ones that you just can't miss out on, just because the quality of the fights, man. Were just so good. I mean, you talk about, you enjoying it there with Brett Benetti and yourself in the commentary booth as well. You're obviously usually partnered with MCT, Trahair, and Nathan. I just want to give a special shout out to T, because boy, was that man in his element. I think there was a couple of times even like sneaky saw you like looking at him doing his thing there, announcing the fights with a big old grin on your face. Like, this was absolute just flawless theater from Trahair, announcing the fighters, they come in and doing the post-fight interviews and everything. The man was on fire tonight. I know he's obviously normally doing the commentary thing on the East Coast, but this was absolutely incredible stuff from MCT. Shout out to you, my friend. That was incredible stuff.
Yeah, bro. Blake Richardson better hope that he got a one-way ticket to Hollywood, man, because MCT's just stealing everyone's jobs at Eternal MMA. Man, he was on fire, yeah, bro. I was sitting back watching him do his thing. Like, I'm developing a close friendship with T. He's for me, he's the best play-by-play, one of the best play-by-play commentators in the world, and he's obviously incredibly talented across the board too. So it was really cool to see him in there. He absolutely smashed it, man. Sat back there videoing his introduction of Anthony Drillich, and it was cool, bro. It was cool.
No, incredible team you guys are putting the words together for Eternal MMA, setting up what was an incredible night of fights. Like we said, we talk about the prelim cards, man. When we do these recaps, we normally give a lot of the shine, obviously, to the pro fights, but how can you not shine some light on the amateur fights that were on this card? Like we said, so many finishes. I mean, we just rattle off some of the guys that had some incredible finishes. Guys like Rowan Breet, Lewis Christopherson, Crane Burke, Harry Machete Bennett, all getting the win by a finish. Subs for Breet and Christopherson, and Machete Bennett. And Burke getting himself a TKO stoppage win, or doctor's stoppage win there in the end as well. But incredible fights with decision. I mean, we talk about the decisions as well. I mean, two out of the three decision fights, finishes, sorry, two out of the three decision results ended up being split decisions. If you want to talk about close fights across the board, I was reading the word Bird there because I had traveled on to Joseph Bird, who was the only man to get the win done by a legitimate decision there in the end. But just like incredible performances from top to bottom was this for the amateur fights here as well. You obviously sitting there cage side. You got to see a lot of these up and coming guys coming through all these gyms and showcasing their skills. Anything in particular that stood out for you for this prelim card?
Yeah, I think I'll just start by saying that, the Perth prelims, like we said in passing that these Perth prelims are just like different than anything else. So
always
the gyms up there on the West Coast are producing such a top tier of talent. And these guys are having a lot of fights in the amateurs at a high level. A lot of them are fighting each other. And I said I dropped a statistic in the UFC Fight Pass opener that I found really interesting. And that's 20, UFC, in the UFC, Eternal alumni, so guys who have had 70% or more of their fights in Eternal have gone on to a combined record of 28-8 in the UFC.
Incredible.
And one of the keys to success, as I see it, is the matchmaking, the level of matchmaking, the level of competition experience that they're getting in their schedules in Eternal MMA. And like the proof's in the pudding for guys like, Nima Boros and Paddy Cameron, two undefeated guys, 4-0 and 6-0 respectively, coming into that, having incredibly tough fights and learning everything there is to know about themselves as mixed martial artists before they, even get a sniff at going pro, and then they're getting the same, level of experience, the same type of matchmaking at a higher level before they even set foot in the UFC. They're not getting fights handed to them. They're not, fighting Balinese kitchen hands and stuff. The prelims are serving as such a good proving ground for these guys. Robin O'Neill owes me, $500 for dropping that in that little segment.
Ooh.
Proving ground to figuring out who they are before they step up to the big show. Yeah, a couple ones that stood out, I guess, straight off the rank was Bird versus Lim. Lim 0-1 coming into that. Bird was supposed to fight Jesse Swain, who made his professional debut and won by knockout. So, and had a ton of experience under his belt. Lim stood up to the plate and came swinging. That was an incredible fight to get the party started and warmed the crowd up. But moving forward, I think for me, that one aforementioned, the Nima Burrows, the Iranian wrestler with the slick boxing versus the Kiwi Paddy Cameron, just an immense talent, full of power, who threw down, and it was neck and neck the whole way through. It was really hard to pick. Went to a split decision. That was a really cool fight. Nima Burrows moved to 7-0, and Paddy Cameron won a whole bunch of new fans over in Western Australia.
Not a lot of new fans for a lot of those guys on there too. And I mean, we just mentioned some of those fights there, but just sort of looking down the list and refreshing my memory, some of the guys that were on there were some really good finishes. Rowan Breet was one that stood out for me, jumping that really nice guillotine Poirier style to get the finish there as well. Lewis Christopherson as well out of Wilkes MMA, getting the job done by rear naked choke finish. K9 himself, Stephen Urseg's gym, of course, at Wilkes MMA there too. There was Johannes Leroux, was the one that had his shoulder popped out, I think, from memory in that fight, which is what resulted in that doctor's stoppage win for Crane Burke. Apparently, there was a little bit of controversy around, was that sort of a stoppage and everything? I'll leave that to the professionals to sort of debate, but take nothing away from Crane Burke there. But a lot of fantastic performances as well. I mean, we mentioned on the submission side of things, Harry Machete Bennett, getting the job done over Noah Staines too. He ended Noah Staines' undefeated 3-0 start to his amateur career as well. So hats off to him. And of course, you just talk about Nima Beiruz there and Paddy Cameron. Like, what a fight that was. Beiruz himself saying that he's looking to go professional. He's now 6-0. That was a fight. That was a couple of amateur guys that were undefeated coming into this one just before we eventually make our way to the pro ranks. Of course, we had Aiden Todorov as well and Wyatt Fraser for the final prelim there as well. That was an incredible fight for as long as it lasted. Yeah. Todorov, man, we just touched on Todorov there. We're talking about this before we got on there too, but some slick boxing from Aiden Todorov to finish off that fight against Wyatt Fraser, who's a highly touted prospect in his own right. Love to give a little bit of shine to Aiden Todorov there, man, because this was an incredible performance too in the amateur ranks of the lightweight division.
Yeah, look, no odds set for those fights. Obviously, being amateur fights and Ladbrokes involvement to come down the track, but you would have had to say that Todorov was probably the underdog coming in against Wyatt Fraser. Wyatt Fraser's so experienced, such a strong body of work in his resume, excellent wrestling. Like I said, that Kodo Gari, that he hits that outside leg rip. Is it Kosodo Gari? Kodo? I don't know. I don't speak Japanese, but that outside leg rip that he hits is top notch and like really high percentage. And he hit one in this fight, the one that he went for, he got it. Todorov, man, 19 years of age, I think he is, and he's come out and said that it's his immediate goal to claim the featherweight and lightweight titles at Eternal and be a two-weight champion. And man, it's hard to deny the guy that faith in himself when he comes out and takes out a guy like Wyatt Fraser. He just hits so hard, man.
Doesn't he, man? Yeah.
And it's crazy, and he's fighting pretty close to his walk around weight too. So to carry that power at this stage in his career is really impressive. Wyatt Fraser chose to stand in the pocket and punch on with him, which I was pretty surprised. I was happy to sit there and watch it. It was pretty cool, man. Both boys were landing each other, but Todorov landed the more devastating, cleaner shots and dropped him. Really an incredible way to cap off the prelims. A well-deserved feature prelim bout that one was.
Yeah, no, that was incredible. It's sort of that kind of final sequence up against the cage there where Todorov landed that really clean sort of left hook towards the end. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Jake Matthews when I can't remember the dude's name, the Portuguese guy that he cleaned up some cards ago when they had that real kind of close exchange up against the cage. It sort of reminded me of that, and it was who's sort of going to connect first, and Todorov did it just nicely and finished off on the ground. So hats off to that boy there for getting the job done, and hats off to the rest of the guys on the prelim card for, once again, absolutely showing out for Eternal MMA. This is being touted as potentially one of, if not the greatest Eternal prelim cards that we've ever had. For all of those guys, a lot of performances. The winners or losers, hats off to you guys because you gave the HPC in Perth an absolutely incredible showing for everyone watching too on eternalmma.com as well. So make sure you go check those out when they're up on YouTube. I know the Eternal Media guys have been dropping some of those fights on the Eternal Insiders Facebook page. So if you're not a part of the Eternal Insiders Facebook page, make sure you get over there and check out some of those fights that have been drop fed if you haven't caught those out already, but no doubt those fights will be up on YouTube soon. What you can check out is the main card that's already, of course, up on UFC Fight Pass because that's where the main events happen. That's where the main fights happen. And you can go back and watch those already. A man that you mentioned there just before, Jesse Swain, opening up the main card here. Getting the job done inside the first minute in the featherweight division against Julian Justiniano. A little bit of controversy with what was an apparent scratch or an eye poke that was sort of being debated as to was it an eye poke. Now, I've watched this back a little bit. I don't know if you have, but after sort of slowing it down a little bit and having a look at some of just those little sequences towards where Justiniano started complaining of something going to his eye, it does look like a left hand of Jesse Swain's he tries to sort of break when he enters to throw the strike. Might have actually caught him on the eye there. I don't know if that's sort of been pointed out by anyone in particular. Now, it's a bad angle, so I can't say for sure. But take nothing away from Jesse Swain because this kid just looks like, it's early days, but he's got a little bit of superstar quality about him. I'm speaking particularly sort of more from his fighting style. Got that real just kind of loose swagger to him inside and outside the cage, and had some pretty big things to say on the mic after it. But nice teep kick that he said he's been drilling in the shed since he was a kid, since he first started training, and that connection, man, and just drops Justiniano, who's a very credentialed former college wrestler that never got to get that side of his game going. But Jesse Swain moves to 1-0 to start his pro career. Incredible performance from Jesse Swain. What did you think of this one, brother?
Yeah, man, I like it. And look, I saw that in real time, and I felt that his hand was closed, and it was a closed fist that hit the eye. But no, I haven't watched it back. Are you talking
about the right hand that he threw down the pipe, though? Is that what you're talking about?
I thought it was his left hand. So he went 1-2-1, or went to frame, and it looked like it was the glove. But things. But happy to watch it back again. But what I don't think his eye affected him when the foot went spearing into his gut. There's this picture that Jesse Swain's put up on his Instagram. I'm not sure if you've seen it, and it's his toes digging in to the body, and the
actual photograph of it.
And it's just rippling, like
that cartoonish, like kind of like bubbling. Yeah. Nice. I haven't seen that as yet, but I'll make sure I check that out.
Look, a teep is in Thai's technique that's used to take an opponent's balance. It's defensive. It's used to break posture. In karate, it's more common to kind of dig the toes in the ball of the foot. And I like how Jesse throws it without a towel. So he maintains his head on the same position. His shoulders don't change position. There's some cool footage of him warming up with his teammate just before he makes the walk out, and he's just throwing it over and over and over again. And it's that kind of specificity that he's developed through repetition that allows him to put it straight on the money. And if you listen to the commentary back, he comes and he lands one almost straight away as soon as they get going. He flicks the jab out to control the range, owns that space as his own. He's kind of like China building like a 8-lane highway into the north of India without permission, just establishing that territory as his own. And then he flicks one into the breadbasket, and I was like, I reckon Justiniano's hands are dropping a little bit, and you just can't out-tough a body shot like that. the wrestlers tend to, Giustianano is a stout young fella, and our wrestlers tend to stand a little bit squarer, and that exposes them to that kind of kick. So it was beautiful work from Jesse Swain. I'm looking forward to seeing him bring the pain again and shows to come, man. It's exciting.
Well, he said he wants to come back in June for a Perth event halfway down sort of the year. So, I mean, sign me up for seeing him back on a card soon, especially over in Perth, showing off his skills there inside the cage. Did have a couple of cool things to say on the mic afterwards, saying that Giustianano wasn't on his level. He wasn't making any friends there in particular. But he's just sort of showing that he's here to play, he's here to stay, and he's here to get the job done. And looking sort of just down his amateur record too, like we talk about the flashy side of things that he's got on the feet. He's got a couple of submission finishes on his amateur record there as well. So a couple of things that we haven't sort of seen at this stage. Of course, there's only been 45 seconds of his pro career to date, so we haven't got sort of too much of tape there to look at him in terms of that side of things go. But looks like he's a very, very well-rounded fighter and someone who I'm very much looking forward to seeing again. If it ends up being June in Perth that he was asking for, or whenever it might be, looking forward to seeing him back in the cage for whatever his next opponent might turn out to be. We moved on to Emmanuel Riti defeating Owen Tincombe in the lightweight division. Great support for both of these guys in Perth as well, of course. Emmanuel Riti out of Kick-Ass MMA and Owen Tincombe out of Scrappy MMA. This ended up being Emmanuel Riti getting the job done by the finish. Riti actually started his pro career 0-2, and he's been finished in both of those fights. He now moves to 2-2 for his pro career with a couple of finishes on his own. So he's definitely a kill or be a kill fighter. As you guys mentioned, obviously, in the commentary booth, in terms of his style, he's a very incredibly entertaining guy in the cage and on the mic and everything as well. He's got the goods, and he's now evened up the record there to go 2-2 in his career. But, I mean, this is a cool fight for as long as it went as well. Like, both guys came out absolutely swinging hell for leather, man. You had the best seat in the house, like we said. I was watching on my TV, and it looked pretty ferocious from my end. But from your view, until this fight got finished with that TKO stoppage, what did you see?
Yeah, well, Tincombe came out early and tried to put the pressure straight onto Riti, and he actually cracked him, man, right in one of the opening phases and snapped his head back. And I think he kind of tasted a little bit of blood and got pretty reckless. And I think when Tincombe watches this one back, he'll notice that he was giving away his base when he was coming forward, throwing that right hand, narrowing his stance up a little bit, bringing his right leg with him. And, he's had a long time out of the cage. And as he started to settle into the fight, he started to improve on that. So he probably just needs some more cage time and to string a couple back-to-back to start getting back in the swing of things. It was a long time off for him. Tincombe, a great submission artist, likes to throw caution to the wind at times. So he's got a flying triangle in there, I think. And I believe he's gone for a couple others. So he's just in there to bang, I think, Tincombe. So, he's always going to be an entertaining guy when you match him up with a guy like Doomfist, Emmanuel Riti.
Then my God, yeah, so good.
Yeah, it's sick, bro. It sounds like
it's like a Marvel character or something like that, Yeah.
Yeah, bro, and he's turning himself into one. Yeah. So Emmanuel Riti, it was good. Tincombe started to go to work on his front leg, and I know he's had problems with that in the past, and he was taking some big shots to his leg, but kind of stuck the course with his boxing. And when he started to pick his shots, Emmanuel, and he mixed up his levels, he was working the body of Tincombe nicely. I like the way he throws his right hand. He kind of chops down on it, almost slaps down on it with his four knuckles, like the Soviets used to do that with their amateur style of boxing back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. If you're a boxing nerd,
I recall you actually mentioning this on the broadcast, where I was watching a little bit back, and you referred to this Soviet sort of style of boxing, which kind of pricked my ears up. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm interested in what's going on here. So yeah, if you can talk a bit about what you're talking about, so people like me can understand, it's very insightful.
Well, it's just some nerdy shit, bro. I like nerd out a little bit sometimes, but yeah, the Soviets have and their old system have a different way of throwing the right hand. Of course, in amateur boxing, you can only score with the face of the glove, but they used to slap this kind of right hand down with the knuckles instead of rolling over with like a bent arm overhand right, and it works really good in the pocket. But if you start talking about 4-ounce glove and acknowledge where most of the the padding exists is around the foreknuckle. So if you can find a way to get torque on a right hand with a bent arm shot, and you can put the like the foreknuckles across the head, you can do a lot of damage. And I like the way Reddy was kind of chopping down with that. He's a big, tall guy, and he was mixing up nicely with the body shots. What I found most impressive about Reddy is he would hit, he would get Tincombe defending, and then he would change his angle. It was really good work from Reddy and a nice finish. And then, afterwards, I like what he had to say on the mic too, bro. He's an enterprising young customer is Reddy, and it was good to see him fighting up in Perth in front of his hometown.
Yeah, it was certainly very entertaining. Of course, it was Tincombe shot at sort of towards the end of that fight, and that was sort of really taking advantage of that position and finishing it off with his striking on the ground. But I mean, like you said, some of those strikes he was throwing and just sort of picking some of those shots looks so composed and kind of, so kind of ahead of his years in terms of, his striking package and everything. Certainly looked the goods. Another entertaining fight for the Perth crowd. That certainly was. But I mean, we talk about entertaining, not just inside the cage, but outside the cage, inside the cage, beside the cage, everywhere else around the world. You talk about a man in Farhud Kalatbar taking on Adam Lawrence. I mean, so many moments that I saw leading up to this fight, so many moments during the fight, immediately after the fight, the days after the fight for Farhud. I mean, what an absolute character this dude is. I hadn't actually even heard of Farhud Kalatbar until literally the lead up to the fight, and just sort of starting to get to know everything that he's about. Of course, training out of Australia top team down there with the rest of those guys. It was a successful night, mind you, for the guys at Australian top team. But this was a really kind of preempted fight in terms of something that was going to be a really closely contested matchup. Of course, Adam Lawrence out of Scrappy MMA, highly touted in his own right in the welterweight division. Goes really close to end up going the full distance, but Farhud Kalatbar ends up getting the job done by submission halfway through the third round. But, I mean, dude, you want to talk about intensity in the cage, man, with his skills, with his attitude in the cage, everything up until, him getting off a stool at the end of the third round, while Adam Lawrence is still trying to recover from some of those leg kicks that Farhud was throwing at him. And mind you, Adam Lawrence was given everything he could sort of take and everything as well too. But incredible performance. A lot of swearing on the mic afterwards. I think he joined you in some of the post-fight, commentary and all that sort of thing as well, and got pulled away by his team. But this was the Farhud Kalatbar show. Very, very keen to see how far he takes this thing. I'm not too sure what his plans are, although he did say a lot in terms of where he wants to be going forward. But this ended up being the Farhud show. What did you like from this man? What did you see from this performance? This was a cool one in the welterweight division.
Yeah, I liked everything about the Kalatbar show. I thought it was heaps of fun. It was entertaining, and it's an entertainment sport. And it's just nice to see guys in there like having fun as well. Like, it's serious stuff, but Kalatbar was respectful the whole way through to his opponent. But with intensity, and you can do that too. So he was a sportsman, even went as far as giving Adam Lawrence a little kiss on the cheek when he had him in side control, which I thought was a nice moment. Then he just broke off into a couple cartwheels across the cage back to his stall. It was fun. When he joined us on the mic at the end, Suman told us that he thought me and Brett Panetti were there waiting to interview him. So he thought he was just jumping into his own interview.
Oh, he wasn't crashing the party. He thought that was for him.
Yeah, so Suman's just come and dragged him off. But
just come here, boy.
Yeah, that was hard case, bro.
Nice.
I like ATT, when they come out, you can always guarantee they're going to have a plan, and their fighters seem to be very well drilled and prepared at executing a plan. And ATT have been like that for as long as I can remember them. They always their fighters are always very well organized in the cage, and Suman gives very exact instructions from the corner. He's good to listen to. He stays nice and calm. They're a very well-oiled machine. Of course, they get a lot of practice. They have a lot of fighters and have a lot of broad range of experiences, both in the UFC and on the regional circuit and elsewhere. I like the way that Kalapa came out in southpaw, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like I touted that fight as the battle of the right hands. Obviously, Adam Lawrence has an absolute thumping straight right hand that he's cleaned everyone up with. It's a cannon. Kalapa is the same. It said he tends to loop it. And when you turn into southpaw, you bring that right hand forward. It becomes your lead hand, which makes it a very effective weapon as a jab. Turns a tool into a weapon by bringing your strong hand forward, and it means that you can check hook very powerfully. But turning that into an open stance matchup, that adds a new dynamic, which means it becomes about lead foot position. And Adam Lawrence was doing the right thing to try and straighten his right hand up. He was trying to step outside the lead foot of Kalapa, which meant there was this kind of perpetual movement to the left for Adam Lawrence. And that seemed to be the plan for ATT, because what Kalapa would do is he would kick the leg, he would like throw some volume to get Adam Lawrence moving to his left-hand side. Then he would switch back to orthodox and throw that big right hand. That seemed to be the plan. And whether or not the leg kicks were part of the plan coming in, part of mixed martial arts is like adjusting to what's offered up, and a good corner will recognize when a guy's hurt, when you're having success, and then you can like formulate, a concurrent plan, so the plan becomes to land the right hand, but also to keep attacking that damaged leg, and that's what he did. Plus, on top of that, there was some intelligent gameplay too. So, securing a takedown at the end of a round was very smart. There was some good cage control where Kalapa exposed the back of Adam Lawrence, but didn't rush to take him down. He just recognized that he was able to do damage with the knees and the foot stomps to stay busy. And
yeah, that was cool.
When Adam Lawrence, it was fun, and they were hard shots, man. And when Adam Lawrence started to try and work, then he took him down to the ground. So it was smart stuff from Kalapa. The leg strikes were brutal, bro. Like one of the heaviest ones happened right in front of me and Brett Benetti, and I just kind of watched that leg straighten out and shudder. So Adam Lawrence a ton of heart to get to, the third round, and I thought the final takedown where Kalapa spread the base of Adam Lawrence and the sequence to take the back was smooth. I liked it. There's some fun fights to make for Kalapa. That division is getting pretty warm across Eternal MMA. Kalapa is very happy to be here with us, and we're happy to have him.
Certainly happy to have him. I think you pointed out too in the post-fight notes that landed at damn near an 80% success rate with his strikes as well. So incredibly efficient stuff from Kalapa, and you talk about everything you just talked about there for the ATT boys in terms of putting together like a really well-rounded game plan. Like just did all the things that he needed to do at the right times, and just to kind of finish it off with that nice takedown there, a takedown in the third round, and get the job done by the rear naked choke. After piecing him up, with his leg kicks and everything on the feet. That's to take nothing away from Adam Lawrence too, because Adam Lawrence is a dog, man. This was two guys coming in for their pro debuts, both very highly touted. Adam Lawrence should go on to have a nice little career in his own right too, but it just shows you the level of one Farhood the Hood, Kalapa coming in hot at the Perth HPC. So we'll see him back hopefully sometime soon, and get some more highlight reel moments from the man. Both with his skills in the cage and on the mic too, because what an entertaining lightweight he certainly is. That served us up for the return of Percy Mwambi taking on Ryan Yankowski out of the Wolves Den. Percy, of course, was known for his last performance, and we got the job done by a ninja choke, which he almost landed in this fight as well before he eventually went on and still got the submission with the anaconda choke, I believe it was. In the second round. This all happening in the flyweight division, of course. But this was a nice little technical fight from both fighters. Both fighters trying to find their own moments without being reckless through the course of this fight. Yankowski certainly had his share of moments there too. There was a really nice head kick that he landed to the head, which you called out nicely in the commentary booth in round one there. So it was anyone's sort of fight until it was anyone's fight. Ended up being Percy's fight. And this is just another one of these guys that's coming up. Originally born in Kenya, now training at MMA FFT. Shout out to those boys there with some incredible coaches they have there at that gym, leading that game plan there for Percy. But this is an incredible, good performance from Percy. Again, following off that nice performance that we saw him coming off. Hasn't been as active as I would have liked to have seen him be, but this is a good way to bounce back. Well, not bounce back, but continue his career. Go to 2-1 for his pro career so far. Nice little Aussie chanter there to cap it off at the end of the fight. But Percy Mwambi, we've got something on our hands here at flyweight. What an entertaining boy he is.
Yeah, we've got something on our hands at flyweight, that's for sure. And flyweight, another division that's so deep. Right through the pro ranks, but also a lot of amateurs, really talented amateurs making their way up to the pro ranks too. So that Division 1 to watch out for, with a ton of exciting matches to make, especially with Mwambi. He's probably only like another 2 strong wins away for being right at up in title contention, especially if he does it in spectacular fashion like he has been. He's been taking some names, like putting away some good names. Ryan Jankowski, a really experienced guy, particularly in that Western Australian circuit and overseas with like Gamma. I think like 13 MMA fights, a ton of Muay Thai fights as well. So a lot of cage and ring time respectively for him. With one of the best coaches in the country, and Steve Walton. I admire what that guy does, and love what the fighters that he produces. One thing I will just quickly say about Steve Walton while I'm on that is like a lot of gyms produce fighters that kind of all fight the same, and what I see coming out of Woolston is like fighters that are trained to fight to their individual strengths. Like think about the way that Cole Hamill fights compared to Frank Jankowski, and then again to Ryan Jankowski, the twin of Frank Jankowski, but fight's quite different to him, I found. And I found that quite fascinating, and that's obviously comes down to Steve having a unique working relationship with them. Jankowski came out in this fight playing a kicking game, as did Percy. Percy often does that. Like he's a good, strong kicker, Taekwondo background, and his athleticism and speed and natural ability to have timing means that he can carry that game very effectively into the first rounds when he starts to open up and go to the rest of his suite. And it also forces guys to shoot, and he's got such a vast array of chokes and submissions that becomes quite a dangerous exercise. So he's a tricky proposition. Jankowski was, if you looked at, so they're both trying to kick a lot coming in, but Jankowski was doing quite a lot of high risk kicks, like a lower percentage, higher risk techniques. Had some good moments, and Mwambi did some good damage to his lead leg. Jankowski, with the head kick and some good body kicks too from open stance. It was Percy cementing the first round with a good takedown, a nicely timed takedown at the end of that round. And coming into the second, there's some really cool scrambles coming into the second. But I think it was when Jankowski tried to take Percy down later in the second round that the front headlock position was established by Percy, and initially went for the ninja choke, switched it to the anaconda, and that anaconda was tight, bro. Like that kid must have a squeeze and a half, I reckon, because when he invested in that, Ryan Jankowski went out in a really short period of time. That choke wasn't on very long before he was unconscious. So, yeah, very impressive, man. And a little rendition, a little remix of Aussie, Oi, Oi, Oi for the Perth crowd too. EP coming out soon.
Yeah, I like that. And this, of course, was a rematch. These guys actually fought each other in the amateur ranks back in 2022. There's a nice little note there, which Percy got the job done there. So he certainly got Ryan Jankowski's number there. Now coming up into the pro ranks. One thing that really did tickle me was looking back over his fight notes in the lead up to this one. And he was asked if you have a prediction for this fight. And he says, I quote, "I do not leave breadcrumbs. I like my plate clean when I'm done. You can bet on a second round finish." So it's Mystic Percy, as we'll be calling him from now on, because he absolutely nails it with a second round finish there too. So I liked it. He's an entertaining kid. Great on the mic. He's got the skills. He's got the flash. Just need to see him more active. I want to see him continue. I'd love to see him have a couple more fights this year. He did say in the post-fight speeches that he had a lot of people turning him down. That's probably going to continue now more with this performance, no doubt. But hopefully we can certainly get him matched up in the future because we like to see the flyweight division keep kicking on because we've got an incredible lineage of flyweights in the Eternal flyweight ranks. Of course, we had Anthony Drillich returning, the former flyweight champion, in the main event against the Scotsman in Brian Hislop there, coming over to give Anthony Drillich his return fight back home in Australia. This, of course, was Anthony Drillich's return fight since his decision loss, or it didn't go his way in Dana White's Contender Series in October of last year. But really good to see him back here to steady the ship, get himself back in the win column. Kept his cards fairly close to his chest in terms of what next. But this wasn't without its test, man. I mean, he did not have this fight going his way in the first round. This is all the Scotsman Hislops, doing in the first round, landing some incredibly hard strikes, just absolutely trying to mow him down with all his might. Must be said that Hislop did miss weight by a little bit coming into this one, so maybe he was trying to sort of punch his way out of this one. There might have been some issues with the weight cut. I don't know. I haven't heard necessarily, but this was a nice way for Anthony Drillich to bounce back and get himself into the win column. See what comes next for him, but this was a nice little main event for Anthony Drillich to come back to.
Yeah, I had to put someone in their place during fight week. It was like, I got this old guy coming over from Europe for Anthony Drillich to bash, and I was like, nah, I don't think you understand the level that Brian Hislop's been fighting at, and is capable of still fighting at, and he's a big guy. He's actually bantamweight coming down to flyweight, so he was thick as. I'm not surprised he missed weight, to be honest.
He's like a ball of a human being, man.
time.
You look like a little Geodude or something. Just muscle, crazy.
Yeah, you just want to open it up and put a couple cold beers in there and get on with your day. He was like a little refrigerator, and hit one too. He's fought at a very high level. 6 years out of the game, came back on a big international promotion in Europe and looked really good. I watched that fight. I was like, oh man, he lost it, but he was winning it until he lost that. I was like, oh, this guy's going to be a handful for Drillich, and he comes out hard, and he came out hard, man. He came out trying to knock Drillich's head off, and you kind of just felt the vibe in the stadium was like, oh shit, what if Drillich gets smoked by this kilt wearing madman from Glasgow?
It's going a little bit off script, yeah.
Yeah, and Hislop smashed him with a right hand like an absolute hammer. And Drillich, he's never been finished, right? He's never been finished in 11 fights now or something. He's got an incredible chin. The thing is, talking to Ben Vickers afterwards, is they just always trust in their man that he's going to find a way to land that left hand. If he's on, he'll find a way, and he did, man. He coming into the second round, they calmed him down. He found a home for the left hand. The eye swelled up immediately on Brian, and when it hits the deck, we just don't see it a lot. But Drillich is a serious high level black belt. We saw Brian take him down in the first round, which was quite surprising. But coming in the second, when he hit the ground, he just floated from position very comfortably, took the back and got that one arm rear naked with the wrist trapped, driving up into it from that north-south position. That's the second time he's got that choke. And it's a brutal choke when you get that one on. It's a bad man choke. So that was called spectacular fashion. It was just the kind of finish that Anthony Drillich needed to put himself back where he belongs, at the top of the podium.
Yeah, I think people forget about that part of Anthony's game because of how devastating he is as a flyweight with his hands, just absolute hands of steel. I mean, we've got to remember that Anthony has fought up as heavy as, I think, maybe middleweight or something like that, or it's at least welterweight, something crazy. He's been all the way down sort of through the weight classes, and you wouldn't sort of know it by kind of looking at him. Maybe you'd sort of look at him and think yeah, he could sort of fight a bantamweight, but he's carried the power through every weight division right down to flyweight, and that left hand is just money, mate. I mean, I had to actually watch it back a couple of times to see when he caught high slop with that left, and you saw him kind of pouring at his face like he was hurt. And that was sort of the beginning of the end, I guess, when he did eventually get the finish done by with a rear naked choke there. But yeah, like you said, like incredible way for him to come back and get the job done. And hats off to our high slop for, being another one of these guys making the journey all the way from overseas to come down, give him a red hot test. It was certainly a red hot test. Like we said, it was all him in round one. I think for Cam O'Neill, he must have felt like he was back in the old country as well, because high slop coming out to that Scottish bagpipe music ringing around the HPC there in Perth, Western Australia, might have reminded him of being back home. I don't know if High Slop is a Celtic man or if he's a Rangers man. Maybe if he's the former, then Cam O'Neill won't be shedding too much of a tear for him. But if he's a Rangers fan, he's probably got a few more problems on his hands, because Rangers getting done by St. Mirren for the second time in as many months last week. So I'm not too sure if it's going to be going over your head there, mate. But I'm going to move on from that before I'm quietly showing the door for my gig here at Eternal MMA. But again, shout out to Brian Hislop. High Slop, my apologies for coming over and giving us another main event. Again, fostering this relationship that we've got with a lot of these overseas countries, and coming and putting on some incredible fights, and just capped off an incredible card, man. Like we said at the top of the show, like this was just fireworks from top to bottom. If anyone hasn't checked it out, please go back and look at this on Fight Pass. This was just another incredible showing for Eternal MMA, and started off 2025 with a bang. Hot off the heels of UFC, Eternal MMA 92. We've started the year the right way, on the right foot. A couple of bangers back to back.
Yeah, man. Look, two things. First is that I'm not sure if anyone actually knew this, but it was Tanada Nathan who was playing the bagpipes as Brian Hislop was walking in. So he was at the fact. All right. So Tanada was playing the bagpipes. He's a very talented man.
A few strings in his bow I didn't know about. There you go.
Yeah, mate, he's champion bagpipe player from back in the day. And the Eternal's becoming an international promotion. Like it's not that we're flying these guys over; they're part of the promotion. We've got so much high class press, like top tier Japanese guys fighting for the promotion. We've got Japanese champions from overseas. Costello contending the other day. It's an international promotion, and the action will continue in only a couple of weeks as we head up to the Goldie for an absolute banger loop.
Yeah, we've got Eternal 94 coming up, which is, tickets on sale now at eternalmma.com for this one. Darcy Vendy versus Matt Myers in the middleweight division. And we talked about this not too long ago, in that, the middleweight division needed a bit of a shot in the arm, and it's had a couple of shots in the arm, because things are just heating up in the middleweight division here for Eternal MMA. Darcy Vendy, of course, getting the job done over John Martin Fraser back at Eternal 91. We've got the returning Matt Myers, the man that never actually officially lost his championship, of course. He surrendered the championship when he was dealing with some injuries, but he's officially back and taking on Darcy Vendy in what is just an absolute, like, just want to sink your teeth into it type, fight. Like, just a couple of bulls that are going to be going at it in the main event there for Eternal 94. But that's not all. I mean, we've got a couple of great fights there. We talk about some exciting fighters. I mean, you can't talk about exciting fighters without mentioning Josh the Kamikaze Kuhn. Of course, out of CMBT, Josh Kuhn. We know what a fighter. We know what an incredibly entertaining man that Josh Kuhn is, of course, involved in one of, if not the greatest fight that we've seen in Eternal MMA history or Australian combat sports history. Just an absolute scintillating show against Dim Skillies back at Eternal 65. I missed that one live because that was on the eve of my wedding, so I didn't get to check that one out. But, I mean, go back and check out Josh Kuhn versus Dim Skillies and the rest of Josh Kuhn's catalogue while you're at it, because this is just absolute electric man on paper for you to see. Taking on Jesse Medina, former featherweight challenger for Eternal MMA with a wealth of experience, man. I mean, over 30 pro fights or something like that for Jesse Medina. I think his record stands at 16-16, but you want to talk about experience in the cage against an absolute ferocious beast like Josh Kuhn. That's a recipe for something fun there. And you just got to mention as well the returning Tim Moore, the former flyweight champion for Eternal MMA, an absolute legend of Australian combat sports, taking on Rod Costa, of course, our former bantamweight champion there, in a catchweight fight of 63 kilograms on top of a litany of other good fights they've already got on this card, and still a few more to come from what I hear. But Eternal 94, man, this one's heating up. This is on the Gold Coast. I assume you're going to be going up there for that one. Lots of good things still in the pipeline for Eternal MMA, brother. Yeah,
man, it's crazy. Like the Sydney card, at the Rosehill Gardens. That was a 300% markup in terms of attendance for a Sydney show. Like Sydney's going bananas, Perth's off its head. Obviously the second highest attendance for an Eternal event's first highest gate. And Gold Coast, we're told, is about to sell out. So if you're watching this when it comes out on Thursday, jump straight on and go and get after those tickets. Look, I'm not sure if you know firsthand how many are left, but you don't want to sleep on this. Like, it's crazy. And when the Prince of the Glitter Strip, Josh Coon's on a card, he's going to sell about 90% of those. So go snatch a couple up while you still can.
100%. It's not a marketing ploy. Like, I've seen the ticket sales myself. Like, they are flat out selling out. This is not something we've got a script in front of us and say, tell the guys that the thing's selling out. Like, this is selling out. You can go on eternalmma.com and check out. There's not too many seats left. But, those boys up there on the Gold Coast, they don't mess around when it comes to selling tickets. Josh Coon, nonetheless, a very popular boy up there. But, everything that we've got for the rest of that card, jump on eternalmma.com's website and check out the rest of the fights there. A lot of really good names in there. A lot of young up-and-comers on there too. But a lot of already established talent there to sort of mix in and just keeps the train rolling for Eternal MMA. And no doubt we'll jump back on here. We'll break down some of those fights. We'll talk about what we like and everything that we think is going to happen and maybe not happen. Maybe we'll make a couple of predictions. Who knows? But we'll do it all again, man. And thanks for your time again here, brother. Always a pleasure breaking the fights down with you and recapping all the events. And we'll do it all again soon.
Sounds good to me.
That was huge.